My grandfather, Albert Pearson, served in the Army and fought in World War II. He was actually there on D-Day in the invasion of Normandy. He died when I was in 3rd grade, so I don't really remember all the stories he told me about his time in the Army. But the one story I do remember is that while on the beach, as chaos was ensuing, he stepped on a landmine. Luckily, it didn't kill him, but it did take him out of the fight. Now that landmine was intentionally put there in a heavily trafficked area on purpose by the enemy forces. However, sometimes we as Christians can unintentionally plant landmines on others that can really damage people's faith, create roadblocks between them and God, and take them out of the fight entirely. Paul talks about some of these landmines in Galatians, non-essentials that we turn into non-negotiables. In Paul's day, it was things like being circumcised or what type of food you ate or other Jewish cultural customs. Paul was adamant that the message of the gospel was simply to follow Jesus. But all these other religious leaders kept trying to add on their own non-negotiables. Follow Jesus and be circumcised. Follow Jesus and don't do that, etc., etc. Today, it might look a little different. Whether we mean to or not, we are adding non-essentials to the message of Jesus. Follow Jesus and vote this way. Follow Jesus and only listen to this kind of music. Follow Jesus and don't you dare watch that TV show. Jesus said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So why do we as Christians sometimes add on more and more weight to people's loads? I know that most of us are well-meaning and we wouldn't set out to create roadblocks between people and God. But when we create so many stipulations to faith that we end up doing just that. We end up creating an us versus them mentality, and we end up dividing people that Jesus set out to unify. I've been reading Bob Goff's book, Everybody Always, and it's been challenging me in how I see and relate to those around me. In one chapter, he's talking about how when we travel to a new city and we meet just a handful of people there, how those people act is how we assume the whole city acts. So if you meet a couple of rude people in LA, you assume everyone in LA is rude. And while this isn't right or fair, it's only human nature, which means we as Christians get to show people what Christ is like by how we live and how we treat those around us. Here's what Bob says. We're supposed to just love the people in front of us. We're the ones who get to tell them who they are. We don't need to spend as much time as we do telling people what we think about what they are doing. Loving people doesn't mean we need to control their conduct. There's a big difference between the two. Loving people means caring without an agenda. As soon as we have an agenda, it's not love anymore. It's acting like you care to get someone to do what you want or what you think God wants them to do. Do less of that, and people will see a lot less of you and more of Jesus. Talk behind each other's backs constantly. Just talk about the right stuff. Talk about Jesus. Talk about grace. Talk about love and acceptance. People don't grow where they are informed. They grow where they're loved and accepted. Talk about people, about who they are becoming and who you see them turning into. And give people medals, lots of them. The people around us should be walking around like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They should jingle when they walk. It's this simple. I want people to meet you and me and feel like they've just met everyone in heaven. So this week, as you continue on your journey through Galatians, be mindful of the things you may unintentionally be adding to the message of Jesus. What landmines have you been planting by turning non-essentials into non-negotiables for yourself or for others? Where have you accidentally or intentionally created division? How can you actively bridge that divide? Have you excluded certain people from your circle because they think differently, believe differently, or act differently than you think that they should? How can you lighten the spiritual load of those around you this week? Who can you come alongside and be with as they find their way back to a loving God? Who can you speak life into this week? Give out some medals this week. Have some I see in you conversations. Tell people who you see them becoming. If God has put someone on your heart, actually tell them. Write them a card, send them a text, who knows? A few words of encouragement can make all the difference.